There is a loft on the outer island, adjacent to the sea. The sound of clear water could be heard. After Yu Xueqing arranged for Yangkai to live in the attic, she took the others and left. She let the least strong Ice Heart Valley woman to take care of Yangkai. Before leaving, Xianxia cast a slightly restless look at Yangkai. Yangkai understands. Now that he has reached Extinct Ice Island, he has learned that Su Yan is hundreds of miles away. The yearning for seeing the beautiful woman is surging more than ever before, but he also knows that Extinct Ice Island is not an ordinary place. Naturally, he will not rush around at will. Sitting cross-legged in the attic, Yangkai held Su Yan's ice soul bead in his hand, motionless. He didn't release his spiritual mind, but he could clearly feel that, hundreds of miles away, there was an aura that was closely related to him. That is Su Yan's aura. At the same time, Su Yan was also sitting in her ice room, her beautiful eyes closed tightly, her long eyelashes trembling slightly. Both of them are feeling each other's existence, feeling each other's ups and downs. This kind of silent, invisible telepathy has a feeling of silence rather than sound. Both of them are warm in body and mind. At a certain moment, the two smiled at the same time, and a wonderful spiritual power burst out of their own bodies, crossing the barrier of time and space, and met in the center of Extinct Ice Island. Yangkai seemed to be able to see Su Yan stood in front of him pretty lively. The figure that had existed in his heart for more than 30 years finally reappeared in front of him today. He could even feel that Su Yan was reaching out to touch him. He responded. The spiritual connection between the two is getting closer. Gradually merge into one. There is no verbal communication, but both parties can clearly see everything about the other party, and see everything that the other party has experienced over the years, just like personal experience. In a certain location on the inner island, in Randyunding's ice room, Randyunding, who was meditating, suddenly frowned, as if she had noticed something, and looked up at the void with a look of doubt. At this moment, the communication compass beside her suddenly fluctuated with spiritual mind. She picked up the communication compass, pouring spiritual mind into it. When she noticed the information hidden inside, her face couldn't help but sink. Junior sister, you found the kid and even brought him to Extinct Ice Island? That's the case. It turns out that this little beast is here, disturbing Su Yan's mind. The little beast is looking for death. Randyunding's eyes became hostile. The extremely powerful divine soul power suddenly splashed into the void, booming towards a certain location on Extinct Ice Island. Yangkai, who was in a spiritual meeting with Su Yan, did not expect anyone to attack him. The confluence of heart and mind is different from the power of divine consciousness. The former does not have any killing and defensive power at all, while the latter is capable of attack and defense. As soon as Randyunding's power was used, Yangkai felt that his telepathy with Su Yan was cut off brutally. Not only that, but the shock on his mind also made his face pale, and he almost spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. Who is it? Yangkai opened his eyes, his face extremely ugly. He can naturally feel that there is some murderous intent in the power that cuts off himself and Su Yan's telepathy. It seems that he doesn't care about his life or death at all. If his spiritual power is not superior to ordinary people, then he will be hit hard or killed. This kind of wound, the injury on divine consciousness, cannot be repaired by ordinary spirit pill. Yangkai's eyes were suddenly cold, but soon, he reluctantly shook his head. What he did just now was indeed a bit abrupt. After all, this is Extinct Ice Island, the headquarters of Ice Heart Valley. In 10,000 years, he was the first man to set foot on the outer island, and he acted like that without a word. After thinking about it, Yangkai calmed down and stopped worrying about it. However, that power of divine consciousness was extraordinary, most likely to be the top 5 elders in Ice Heart Valley. After eating a loss, he no longer acted rashly. Anyway, there is always a chance to see Su Yan again. As for Su Yan's safety, Yangkai doesn't worry about it. Anyway, she is also a disciple of Ice Heart Valley Great Valley, so no matter which elder interfere with him, he would not play a heavy hand for Su Yan. In Su Yan's ice room, she suddenly opened her eyes, her face was pale, and she whispered, "Honored Master." thinking about it behind closed door. If you do the same thing again, this great elder will personally take the head of that little beast. Randyunting's cold voice sounded in Su Yan's ears. Su Yan's face was paler, and her mouth opened, as if she wanted to say something, but she didn't say anything. You are so good at saying hello. Randyunting seemed to be quite disappointed with Su Yan now, and after leaving a cold sentence, there was no reaction. In the Ice Palace of Ice Heart Valley, after a year, the senior officials in the valley gathered again. Valley Master, what's the important thing for calling our sisters this time? An elder asked. Bing Long smiled gently, nodded and said, there is one important thing, but it is a happy event. Oh. What happy event? Everyone became curious. Elder Yu has found that young man and brought him to extinct Ice Island. Bing Long announced with a smile. Found him? Junior sister Yu really has a good method. You can find him. You should remember this is a great achievement. I just find him. It's been more than a year, and there have been a lot of casualties among disciples in the sect, and it's time to withdraw. However, Valley Master, have you ever found out why the people from Brilliant Fire Sector are looking for him? What secrets are hidden in him that makes Brilliant Fire Sect look for him so seriously? This Palace Master doesn't know. Elder Yu, you brought him back. What can you find? Bing Long cast her gaze to Yu Xueqing. The latter shook her head slowly. On the way back, I knocked on the side once but the kid did not answer. But according to my observation, he is not an ordinary person. Why do you say that? He should be a genius among geniuses. Brilliant Fire Sect's Xianxia died in his hands. What? Xianxia died in his hands. Bing Long's expression changed and frowned. Didn't you say this person only has a cultivation level of second-order void return stage? Yes, he really only has second-order void return stage, but he can fight people at higher realm than him, so I said he is a genius among geniuses. Not bad. Bing Long nodded. Xianxia also died in his hands. Yu Xueqing had a weird expression, fighting alone, killed by him in 20 breath of time. Xianxia. That Xianxia. Ice Heart Belly's fifth elder narrowed her eyes, and an incredible expression appeared on her face. That Xianxia. How is this possible? Although Xianxia is not from a prominent sect, he has always been a lonely man, but this man has many adventures in his early years, and his strength is extraordinary. He is not an ordinary third-order void return stage. I heard that his Shi potential is almost at the big accomplishment. He is one of the people on Scarlet Billow Star who is very hopeful to be promoted to the Void King realm. How could he be killed by that young man? Sister Yu, are you joking? How can I be joking about this kind of thing? Junior sister, I have seen it with my own eyes, and there are more than a dozen disciples who can testify. Yu Xueqing looked serious. The elders of Ice Heart Valley looked at each other in amazement, and a few people looked towards the fifth elder, wanting to hear her opinion. Among the people present, she was the only one who had fought against Xianxia back then, so she, naturally, had a say. The fifth elder did not shirk her excuses, and she pondered for a moment and said, the last time I fought Xianxia fiercely was 20 years ago. It took me a whole day to severely wound him but failed to kill him. Now, I am not necessarily his opponent. In Ice Heart Valley, there are no more than 3 elders who can stand alone against Xianxia. Hiss. A sound of cold breath sounded, and the expressions of the elders were wonderful. The fifth elder didn't exaggerate anything, just telling the facts, but because of this, it made people feel terrible. Doesn't this mean that the young man's personal strength can rank in the top 3 among us? He only has a second-order realm. If he is promoted to the third-order realm, more than that, contending is not the same as killing. He can kill Xianxia, and it only takes 20 breaths of time. Only the Great Elder may be able to compete with his strength. The expressions of a group of elders suddenly dimmed, and they had no confidence in what they said, because even if the elder made the shot personally, they might not be able to kill Xianxia in just 20 breaths. After looking at each other, everyone's expressions were only shocked. It's a pity, he is not a woman. Bing Long rubbed her eyebrows lightly and smiled bitterly. If Xianxia were a woman, Binglong would definitely absorb him into Ice Heart Valley at all costs. Such a talent would definitely have a much higher chance of being promoted to the Void King realm in the future than other Void Return stage. The reason why Ice Heart Valley can become one of the two great forces on Scarlet Billow's star is because there is a Void King realm who sits in the throne. If there is another one, it can completely suppress Brilliant Fire Sect and surpass it. Become the largest sect of Scarlet Billow's star, covering the sky with only one hand. It doesn't matter if he is not a woman. My Ice Heart Valley disciple is not married. Just find a good disciple to marry him, an elder suggested with a smile. This idea is good, but he may not agree to it. Another elder sitting next to her slowly shook her head. His strength and aptitude are so good, and it seems that he is not very old. Where can there be no women to follow? Maybe there are many women willing to follow him. How can those vulgar fans compare with my elite disciples in Ice Heart Valley? It is his blessing that he can marry my elite disciples in Ice Heart Valley. That is also true. A group of elders were chattering, expressing their opinions, and seemed to want to find a suitable person to marry Xianxia now so that he could be tied to the big ship of Ice Heart Valley. Binglong coughed lightly and said with a weird expression, "Have you forgotten that the people of Brilliant Fire Sect are also looking for him? I'm not afraid of the Brilliant Fire Sect alone. The Ice Heart Valley may not be afraid of anything, but it is very likely to be involved with Master Luahai of Green Hills Star. In case that annoys the adult, my Ice Heart Valley may not be able to bear his anger." The expressions of the elders all changed, and they all fell silent. To be continued.